for their first time. So even upperclassmen are having second thoughts on enlisting to the major. So this event will truly help them in forging their path towards becoming a political scientist. So this event aims to make you informed about the tips and tricks of surviving a political science major course. So sit back, relax, and take note. So welcome guys to main course.
All right, thank you so much, Kuya Chano, for the delightful opening remarks. Now, before we formally start our event, let's warm up first by having a smart kantuhan, a kamustahan. So, how are you guys? How are you, Ate Angela Basa?
So, hello everyone. Okay lang naman. Are you guys still surviving ba? Yung term natin. Kaya nyo pa ba? Malapit ang finals. Kayo, sino bang pwedeng tawagin? Si Miss Noda. Ayan, di ba graduating ka na, madam? Tama ba? Kamusta ka po? Miss Noda. Francesca Noda. Okay. Ayaw niyo tayong kausapin. Sige, si ano na lang. Ika, I think nakakita ko si Ika medyo stress. Di ba medyo stress sa life? How are you, Ika? Kayo guys, kayo chat lang kayo kung ano ba, kaya niyo pa ba? React kayo dyan with any emoji. Ayaw din tayo kausapin ni Ika. Walang gusto kong mausap. Joke lang. Nakakatakot yung reminder of fight. Sorry naman po.
Ito na lang, it's uni week soon, so that's something to also remember. So that's really fun. So even with finals, there's also that. And
Naghihintay din na deadlines.
pagod na daw si Orlando. But, you know, we're only 1-1. We have such a huge and long journey ahead of us. And speaking of which, we're gonna learn so much from today's event because we're gonna be able to understand more about the PolSci courses. So, pagod na tayo. But then today, let's hope that we're gonna get some hope and inspiration from that. All right. So thank you so much, Ate Angela, for that little kamustahan. So now, before we move on to the event proper, I would just like to remind everyone once again of the rules and guidelines. So before we start, please remember to turn off your microphones and only speak when you are talking to the speaker. Everyone is also encouraged to open their cameras and take note of your questions for the speaker for the open forum. You can also send your questions in through the chat box or privately message me. So let's all follow these guidelines to ensure a smooth and effective flow of events. Thank you so much. Now, may I call on Angela once again to introduce our speaker for today.
So, hello everyone. Our speaker for today, he is an ID 118 studying political science and legal management. He is a consistent Dean's Lister student since his freshman year. DLSU's PolSci's former president for academic year 2020 to 2021 and the PolSci's chief of staff for marketing for academic year 2019 to 2020. So, may I now call on Mr. Joseph Sarmiento for our discussion on what to expect, what to do in, and why you should choose the program of political science.
Hello everyone, good afternoon.
Good afternoon po.
Can I share my screen? Ayan. So, before we start talking about political science in DLSU, I'd like to tell you guys muna how I ended up choosing to study in LaSalle. So, in 2017, I applied for 3 universities now. Ateneo, UP, and LaSalle. So, in Ateneo, I applied for BS Legal Management. In UP, AB Political Science. And here nga in DLSU, AB PolSci and BS Legal Management. So the first CET results that came out were Ateneos. I passed BS Legal Management. And then the following day, lumabas din yung sa Lasal. And I also passed the LiaCom program, AB Political Science and BS Legal Management. But after that, parang 3 months pa before lumabas yung result ng UP. And unfortunately, I did not pass UP. So what made me decide to study in DLSU is one, it's closer to my house, and two, because as a frosh, I thought bibo ko, I thought kaya ko. So nag LiaCom ako. I'm still taking LiaCom. I'm taking 2 degrees right now. So ayun. So for today, I'll be talking about 3 major components of being a political science student. So expectations versus reality, studying PolSci, and how to become a good student of the discipline. So first, let's go to expectations versus reality. I'm pretty sure everyone here coming into college may sari-sariling expectations on what PolSci is and how life as a college student in DLSU would be. And here are a few of mine when I was a frosh. So first, considering that I was taking political science, I thought that I wouldn't be having to take math-related classes anymore. But I was wrong. There was one GE na math-related. And in political science, there is a major course devoted to statistics, focusing on the quantitative research methods prior to pursuing your thesis. So in senior high, I thought I was pretty good with statistics. I could keep up with the discussions and I did well in quizzes. But statistics in college is different pala. It's not just mean, median, mode. It's not something you can do easily sa scientific calculator. You had to do things in Excel. Tapos, when I was taking this major course, the only time slot that was being offered was 7:30 in the morning. So imagine 7:30, I'm pretty sure hindi ka naman gigising na 6:30 for an online class. So, bagong gising ka for a 7:30 class on statistics, and sometimes you have to take the quizzes synchronously. So I think that's one of the major hindrances on why um, statistics and political science was a bit more difficult for me. Besides the fact that I'm not really mathematically inclined person. Next expectation is that there would be better profs because from upperclassmen, you'd hear that there were professors who gave low grades, who gave a lot of output, a lot of work to do, and yet you'd end up with scores that you think are lower than what you deserve. And then, of course, there's the freedom wall and DLSU profs to pick on Facebook where, you see the feedback of students who are currently studying, who have already graduated about the professors that you are contemplating about taking. And some reviews aren't as good as you'd hope for them to be. Some reviews are good, but then when you have the prof, it's not that good naman pala. Well, while there are reviews naman na totoo, but in PolSci and DLSU, I think the department has one of the best sets of faculty in the College of Liberal Arts and in the university also. It's true, some of the professors are strict, they give heavier workload, they give long readings. But despite that, you'll be ending the term with at least a little knowledge, if not a lot. But the important thing there is you've learned something from them. And yung learnings nyo sa kanila kasi, sometimes it's not easily realized. Like after lecture, like let's say today, we had a lecture, you don't get to appreciate that lesson immediately. But in the long run, let's say you're watching the news and you see familiar movements politically, and then what you learned in the past will come to mind. Tapos dun mo ma-appreciate yung trainings mo sa political science. Then another expectation is that political science is connected to law because the common notion for political science is it's a first step towards being a lawyer. So you think you'd be studying cases like L. Woods, Annalise Keating, Mike Ross, and Harvey Specter, but that isn't really the case. In political science, you don't really get to touch on laws that much. I think the most that we got to study the law was when we took a class on legislation. And what we did there was we didn't really read the laws in depth. What we did was we had to trace the progress of a certain bill that was yet to be passed. Like, does it take several congresses before it becomes a law, or does it just take one Congress? Who are the proponents of the act, of the law, and stuff like that? So, in political science, it's more on theory, concepts, and ideologies like elite capture, political participation, the kinds of democracy, what a strongman democracy is, and stuff like that. And as well as the government and its structures, like there's a course in political science. It's called public administration. You look into the processes of the government, the structure of the government in itself, and then you evaluate why you think the service of a certain government office is inefficient because of the bureaucracy or stuff like that. And I think that's one of the more interesting parts of political science kasi there really are some subjects in PolSci na more on theory talaga, like what's yung mga individualism, realism, and stuff like that. And when you think about it, it's sometimes boring. But when you're through with the fundamental parts of political science and you actually go into the courses that are more in-depth, more practical, when you see how it's being applied in real life, you'll be more interested in the course. Yan. So next is what what does it mean to study political science, and what is it really like to study political science? So first, it was a shock to me. My first term taking up the majors, it was a shock to me because yun nga, my expectations for political science I thought would be more legal related and stuff like that. Instead, my first major courses were comparative politics, um, Philippine political history, and the fundamentals of PolSci. And I thought, oh, wasn't this wasn't what I was expecting. And my blockmates then, my classmates, they would already know a lot about political science. And for me, I was like, how do these people know all about these things? Parang were there readings about this already? And it turns out pala na they've already been invested in the study of politics even before they went into college. And so these professors, to help you really learn and to help you understand what they talk about in the classroom, they assign readings. And these readings are not just the 10 pages, 5 pages kind of readings. They're not easy reads. For me, I'm maraming readings that weren't really easy reads. And you really had to take the time to understand and to digest the information there. But the readings would really help you understand kasi in class. Kasi when you mention a vague topic, it doesn't it doesn't click right away when you just listen to it. But sometimes when you read how how it's in effect in the world, mas magigets mo siya kasi mas ma-visualize mo yung application niya. And then for some professors, they have recitations that are graded. Though not all naman. Not all would require you to recite, and they don't really expect you to memorize parts of the text. Like they don't expect you to give verbatim answers from the text. They just really want to know that you understood what you read and what they taught inside the class. Then the types of grading in PolSci, it really varies. Some profs opt to give quizzes and final exams. Some opt to give research papers. So for those who give quizzes, these are the kinds of profs that you really have to listen, you really have to take notes. Kasi um, sometimes it's all based on what's in their PowerPoint, but sometimes they also mention a few pieces of knowledge that they weren't able to put into the PowerPoint that you have to take down because sometimes that's where they get items for the quiz. And then some naman give research papers, and there will be times that you have 2 to 3 research papers all at the same time. And then there are also a few professors who give a final exam and they also give a research paper. But it's nothing you haven't done before. It's really a manageable thing once you get the hang of working with political science professors. And then the grades, you have to work to get the grades that you want. Because I thought I would get easy fours just because I I enlisted under a professor who was known to give easy 3.5s to 4s. But that's not really the case. There are profs talaga na they will look at your output and how you've performed in the whole term to determine the grade that you've deserved. So you really have to work for it. And then lastly, what does it take to be a good student of the discipline of political science? So first, you have to be aware of the current events, not only here in the Philippines, but also in the world. When I was taking my fundamentals of political science class, our professor would always start the session with a small sharing of what was happening in the world in the Philippines. And we're encouraged to really share about it and to engage in a small discussion within the class. Because that's also how you learn political science. It's not just reading, it's not just writing. You also have to engage in discourse with people who are your classmates, diba? Because we don't share the same notion, the same state of mind when it comes to these political events and all of that. So when you get to exchange and to discuss the political events around you, that's how you get to be more immersed into the discipline. I think that's one of the things I like about political science. I have batchmates who really engage in political discussions sa Messenger, sa Facebook even. As in, over the campaign period during the elections, they were talking about how Leni Robredo could improve her numbers, on how her campaign team could work harder to get more votes. And there were also analysis on how Isko Moreno's campaign might have failed and how the campaign of BBM and Sara Duterte were successful. And even after the elections and now that cabinet appointees are being named, they continuously share their thoughts and their sentiments about it. And you don't really have to engage, like you don't have to answer back with them because I get the hesitation when you sometimes feel like, oh, I don't know much about this. So I'd rather not engage because I don't want to make a fool out of myself. But when these are written arguments on Facebook, it's really good to read and understand where they are coming from. Because from what they're saying, from what their opinions are, and from where they're coming from, that's where you'll be able to develop your own understanding. That's where you'll be able to understand what your politics are and how you think that politics should be. And then next, writing skills. Um, a lot of papers, so you really have to know how to write well because the professors in political science, they don't really look for long papers. They don't really look for papers that are extensive. They're looking for papers that are able to explain why this is happening, what should be addressed, how you could improve certain parts of the government and political structures in the Philippines, in the world. That's really what they're looking for. So that's why you have to work on improving your writing skills. And you won't lack practice because the professors in political science, they really give you papers to help you work on that writing skill. Na it's critical and it's your writing skill becomes critical and opinionated at the same time. And comprehension, because a lot of readings and a lot of discussions, it would really call for you to have a good understanding and have a capability to understand things quickly and on the go and correctly as well. Then good group mates. Good group mates, I don't mean people who are good academically. I mean people who are able to work with you really well, people you get along with, because there sometimes you're on an off day, your group mates are on off day. It's important that you know that you'll still be able to work well on a paper despite whatever might happen to you personally or to your group mates. What's important is that you understand them and they understand you, because um sometimes group works really fall down to the communication aspect of it for the group work to turn out successful. Then time management, because a lot of the professors, they will give readings na sabay-sabay. So you have to understand the readings, you have to be able to read even just a little to understand the gist of the paper, so that when there's a discussion in class, you'll be able to contribute to the discussion, and you'll be able to catch up and understanding it then. Then of course, with the requirements na sabay-sabay na papers and all of that, then also your personal life. So time management really is the key for a political science student. And this has been something that's been reiterated to me by my upperclassmen as well. And then patience, because like in my journey as a political science student, my first few terms, I really felt like I wanted to drop out. I felt like political science was too theoretical for me. I felt like I wanted something more practical in a sense. And then another factor to why I wanted to drop out is because I didn't feel like I belonged in the room of people who were able to understand politics quickly, while I was taking a bit more time understanding the politics of it all. But eventually, kasi when you're patient with um, learning, you'll be able to understand it, and you'll be able to understand and know that um, you just really had to take time before you understood the disciplines in political science. So that's all for me. Thank you. And the most important thing for you to do in PolSci now is to enjoy. Because if you don't enjoy political science, then you'd be really having a difficult time understanding political science. Anyway, you.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Yosef. So we'll now be moving on to the open forum. So this was answered, I believe, in your discussion already, but uh, I, okay, sorry. All right, open forum. So our first question is, what is the difference of political science and legal management?
In political science, um, it's a bit more diverse. We've had courses that studied politics in Southeast Asia, and then we also touched on international relations, and then there's comparative politics wherein you compare, let's say, the politics in the Philippines, Indonesia, or in Thailand, and then what else? But there's also policy design, where you look into how a policy, like laws and all that. When we had our policy design, it was the first online term. So it was the peak of the pandemic almost. So we looked into how the policies of local governments and the national governments were being made, and how they're successful, how they're efficient, or how they're not so successful, and stuff like that. Well, for legal management naman, it's like mini law school. I'm still in the middle of legal management, so I can't really speak for the other half of it. But Right now, I'm taking a criminal law course. Last term, I finished the labor law course. And then you also have a class that's devoted to learning about legal jargon and also speaking, debating, and argumentation. So for legal management, it's really more on the legal side, more on laws and jurisprudence. It's really a step. It's, I think, between political science and legal management. Legal management is a closer step to law school than political science is. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. All right, too. So, again, after hearing all the colorful stories and presentations with the journey of being a political science major, we're in the open forum. So everyone, please feel free to send in your questions in the chat box, and yeah, let's keep this engaging. All right. So our next question is PolSci is a major course that is known to be notorious and nerve-wracking. What makes this course difficult, and do you have tips for Frosh and future Frosh who are planning to take it in the future?
It's a major course now. When I'm not really sure because when I was taking political science, Poly Eco was an elective, so I didn't choose to take Poly Eco. But I think the Poly Eco course is being taught by someone who is really well versed in political economy. I'm not sure if it's Dr. Holmes or Dr. Batalya, but I've had them both. Si Dr. Holmes, he's a bit more chill. Um, he explains the lesson well naman. While si Dr. Batalya, he's a bit more stricter and he really expects excellent output from you when he asks of it. So I think um, so Dr. Batalya is teaching Poly Eco. So, for Dr. Batalya, ang tip ko lang is to make sure that your work is really good. Because if it's not good, he won't like it. Like, um, I had him twice. I had him for policy design and I had him for another course. I don't remember. But when I had him for policy design, that was my first time taking him. And when we had the report, he said that my partner and I's report was excellent daw. And then yung final paper naman, we got 75 over 100. So sabi ko, there's a big difference talaga. He really expects great works from his students. And I got a pretty low grade from Dr. Batalya the first time I took him. So I think I learned from that and I was able to get a better grade the second time I took him. So yun.
Thank you so much for that. All right. So our next question is, practicum is a major course in all courses. So what happens in PolSci practicum basing off from your experience?
For practicum, it's up to you to look for a practicum site. The department has a database of its accredited practicum sites, like they're already partnered. So that's lesser documents for you to accomplish and to process. For practicum, kasi the experience differs in people. For some of my batchmates, practicum was a bit easier for them because that was their only class at that term. So they were able to focus on their practicum and they were able to they had more time to look for a practicum site that would cater to political science as a discipline. While for me, I didn't really have much time because I was with practicum. I was taking 15 units of COB courses, so I had to choose a department in DLSU to work there. My experience was pretty good naman. They had me work on a few political events. Like when I was an intern for COSCA, I was an intern for COSCA. They had me analyze President Duterte's State of the Nation address. And then I was also involved in some activities of CONIC, the one that is headed by Dr. Holmes and the one that spearheads activities on voters education and stuff like that. So it's pretty okay naman. My advice lang is for you to really look for practicum site that will be able to help you apply what you learned sa political science. Kasi there's not a lot of that, honestly. And it's quite difficult also. Kasi before, my upperclassmen, they were able to work sa Senate under senators. And my time, we weren't allowed to work outside of our house. We had to have a work from home setup, and it was more difficult talaga to look for a political science inclined practicum site. But yun, get a site that works for you all.
All right. Thank you so much for answering that question. So, we have two questions here that are a bit similar, so I'll merge them into one. So, what is the most difficult part of being a PolSci major, and what was the most difficult PolSci major you took? Like course. My apologies, course. So, yeah. What's the most difficult part about being a PolSci student, and the most difficult subject in
Okay.
PolSci?
So the most difficult part of being a political science student is the finals week, because that's when all of the research papers are really due. I had experiences na parang three three research papers na sabay-sabay or kasunod yung deadline. Tapos, same lang yung groupmates mo in all three papers. So, pare-pareho kayong stressed on working on the papers, ganyan. So, that's a difficult part, really having to accomplish it. Like, I had an experience na for Dr. Contreras' class, in one day, we had 4 deadlines. Parang a blog, a video, and 2 papers. And then, I'm not exactly the best in time management. Kahit sinabi ko, kailangan yun ng time management. Sabay-sabay namin ginawa yun. Kasi the video was a group work. The blog was individual. The papers were individual also. So the individual things I was able to submit. And then because of the stress that my groupmates and I had, we had the miscommunication. We were not able to submit the video to Dr. Contreras. Buti Dr. Contreras was really kind to offer us options. That was a time na pwede pa magpa-defer ng grade. So yeah, he asked us if you'd like to have a deferred grade and submit it the following term, or just get a 0 and get the grade that you have. So of course, we took the one where we defer the class for a bit to get a higher grade. And then the most difficult one for me, I think, is policy design under Dr. Batalla. I don't think that the course is difficult, but the course being handled by Dr. Batalla was what made it more difficult. He explained things well, so there's no excuse for you to not aim that in your paper and in your work. So that was the most difficult course for me.
All right. Thank you so much. We'll definitely take note of that. Okay, so the next question is, what can you say to PolSci students who have lost or are slowly losing hope after the results of the previous elections?
Well, from a political science perspective, people would say na the next 6 years would be interesting for you to analyze. Like, a lot of the things that you learned as a student, a lot of that will be coming out in the next 6 years. In Facebook, like sila Dr. Contreras, he's one of the more active posters of his critiques and his commentaries and his opinions. And you also get a different perspective. So in about losing hope naman about the results of the elections, ano ba? Nawalan din kasi ako na hope eh. I think we just have to hope that we are actually wrong about what we assume about the winning parties. Yun. I think that's really it eh. Kasi what else can you do? I mean, you have to accept the results of the election, but that doesn't mean that um, you won't be vigilant of the things that are happening around you. I think that's where being a political science student comes into play right now. Now you have to be vigilant and you have to be aware of everything that's happening. Kasi that's how you'll be able to contribute to the hope na gusto nating makita among the ranks of the youth and the people who are hoping for a better country.
Thank you so much for answering that question. All right, for our next question, how many hours do we need to finish for OJT, or is it a whole term? Do we need to take an OJT related to PolSci? And if yes, what do you suggest?
I think the CHED mandated number of hours is 200 hours. 200 hours of practicum, that's the whole term. You can take practicum na just practicum, or you can do what I did, you can take practicum with other courses. Does it have to be political science related? I think it should be. I think it should be, although it's not necessarily na what you learn in political science, it's something that caters to what you want to become as a political science student. Because I have batchmates who don't necessarily want to be lawyers. They want to be students of the discipline. So they went into researching. They went into working for a few of the professors we have in the department as a research assistant. Some naman opt to work for government agencies or for local government units. So I would say I would prefer to have an internship, a practicum or OJT na inclined to an aspect of political science.
Right. Thank you for that. So, our next question here is, are we allowed to apply for a company that is not in the database of DLSU qualified department like DOJ, Stanley, etc.?
Yes, you are. There's just a few additional documents like a memorandum of agreement, if I remember correctly. Like you have to process it with the company, let's say nga DOJ, you have to process it with DOJ, then you have to have it checked by the legal office of DLSU and the department as well before you'll be able to work the DOJ for your OJT.
All right, thank you. All right, so our next question is, what are your tips for LiaCom students in balancing academics? So it's because I'm also a LiaCom student myself, but I'm not sure if I'm gonna pursue it. And the fact that you're still doing it, like, it is inspiring, and in a way that I would like to know, like, how it is when you're balancing everything in that.
Okay, so as a LiaCom student, for me, follow the flow chart. I have a few friends who are still in LiaCom who messed with their flow chart. Now it's a bit more messier for them. It's like a few of them were delayed a term or two terms because the timing of the subjects in COB, it's not the same in CLA na almost every term these courses are being offered. In COB, it's not always like that. And in COB, the cases, there are prerequisite subjects. Like you have to take this before before you can take the next one. You really have to follow your flowchart so it's less hassle for you. And on a motivational standpoint naman, it's overwhelming sometimes having to take 18 units. Because when you look at the flowchart, like my flowchart, my first two terms, 15 units lang as a frosh. And then simula third term of my frosh year until now, I take a minimum of 18 units every term. Then until my second to the last term in DLSU, it's 18 units. So it's overwhelming now. You have to take a lot of subjects every term. But what I like to think of now, because I think last term, when I almost failed a class in COB, I wanted to drop my COB course. I said, I just wanted to graduate na lang. I wanted to drop out of legal management. But then I talked to my mom and to a few of my friends, and they said, don't look at how much more subjects you have to take and how much longer you'll be studying. What you have to look at is how far you've come already. Like, I'm a fourth year student now, and when I look in front of me, there are like 3 more terms of 18 units. But when I look behind me, I've successfully completed 10 terms na puro 18 units. So, that's how you motivate yourself na you're almost there, patapos ka na. And ako personally, I don't want to be someone who starts something and not finish it. So, yeah, it's just really a mindset then if you want to continue.
Thank you so much for that. All right. So, is it possible that you explain what a LiaCom is for the other people that might not know what a LiaCom is?
Okay, a LiaCom student is someone who is taking 2 majors basically. So one in the liberal arts and one in the College of Business. So I think the matchups are not infinite. Like you can't pair this course in liberal arts and that course in COB. I think may ino-offer lang yung DLSU na pairings of LiaCom courses. Basically, that's it. And hindi naman necessarily nasabay mo siyang tinitake. My first 2 years and a half in DLSU, I was taking more on the political science, more on the liberal arts. So let's say I have 18 units in a term. 15 units are liberal arts. 3 units are from COB naman. And then now I'm in the latter part of my studies in DLSU. Right now I have 15 units of COB subjects and 3 units of PolSci subjects. Ganon. So, if you're interested naman to be a LiaCom, pwede ka mag-shift into LiaCom, which rarely happens. So, rare yung ginawa ni Chano. But most of the time, a lot of people opt to shift out of LiaCom into just Lia or a COB. So, yun.
All right. Thank you so much for that. Tawang-tawang ating current PolSci president na. All right. So moving on. So, do you recommend taking up all general educational subjects, so the GEs and the LaSallian courses, just so that it's already focused on PolSci major subjects? So taking up all the GE subjects and all the LC subjects. So in a way it doesn't necessarily follow the flow chart that's given, or yeah, that's the question.
I think it depends on you. But I think it depends on you if that's the kind of studying that you want to do, the focus lang on political science subjects in isang term, focus yung GEs in one term. But for me, I liked having a mix of both kasi sometimes it's tiring na puro politics. Like, kasi when I was taking the bulk of my PolSci majors, it was really the peak of the pandemic. So parang in every class, COVID-19 yung topic ng papers na ginagawa namin, ng point of discussion. So parang taking GEs along with your political science majors helps you revert your attention from the political science majors. It also helps kasi ako personally, it helps keeping a fresh perspective sa political science when I don't have to keep on focusing on political science.
All right, thank you so much for that. So our next question is, do you have any thesis tips?
Thesis tips. When I took the pre-thesis is Paul Meth in your flowcharts. in Polmeth, when we were taking it, he said the person that you're working with in Polmeth is your thesis partner already. But I think in 119, the case was different because I have my friends in 119. He said it wasn't what happened with them when they took Polmeth and they took this. But for me, the most important part of thesis is to pick someone na you can work well with and understands your work ethic, and you also understand their work ethic. Because what's difficult with thesis is if magkakasisihan kayo in the middle of writing your paper, it makes things more difficult. It makes progress slower also. And then when you're assigned a thesis advisor, it's important that you keep your communication channels between you and your partner and between you and the thesis advisor so that maging constant yung progress. Because, ano ba? I think that was one of my mistakes along with my partner. Parang we were waiting for the thesis advisor to reach out. But the thing is, you also have to be the one to take initiative to reach out to them. Now, when you have to ask for comments or suggestions sa paper nyo on how to improve your thesis, and then also choose a topic that's interesting to you. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Yusuf. And let me see if we have other additional questions, but I think so far that's it. So thank you everyone for your questions, and thank you, Mr. Yusuf, for answering those questions. Before we end the open forum, we would like to thank the speaker for enlightening us and entertaining all of our questions. So I'll now be presenting the certificates. All right, so this certificate of appreciation is awarded to Mr. Yusuf Rafael Sarmiento. Thank you so much for your insights on today's topic. So, in grateful acknowledgement of the noble sharing of his time and experience as a resource speaker for main course, sorry, it works as a statement to his competence and excellence in his field. So given this 10th day of June 2022, Manila, Philippines. So let's take a little Zoom fee by Ika. All right, so everyone, please feel free to turn on your cameras and let's take a Zoom fee.
Does Ika hear ba?
I'm not sure, so I can take it naman. All right, everyone turn on your cameras and yeah, or send in a little heart react button as we take the photo. All right, so 3, 2, 1, smile and heart reacts. All right, thank you so much. Can we also get a photo with the certificate and the speaker? Yes. So share screen again, the certificate. All right, so 3, 2, 1, smile. All right, thank you so much. So, all right, let's now call on Mr. Orlando Dizon to deliver his closing remarks.
Hello, can you hear me ba?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, I'll start. Political science truly is a difficult program, and it is understandable if someone nearing the majors feel anxious and start having self-doubts. Generally, in life, it's normal to doubt and feel afraid whenever you're entering a new phase in life. But what we all need is someone experienced and someone wise enough to help and clarify all of these never ending questions running through our minds. The majority of attendees today, including me, are students who will now take the major subjects in the upcoming term. Let us all keep in mind everything that Mr. Yosef discussed today and use it not only for our own benefits, but also to assist and uplift the people around us. For the attendees today, thank you for your insightful questions. For the PolSci board, thank you for assisting the younger generation and helping them shape their future. And lastly, on behalf of everyone present in this seminar, thank you, Mr. Yosef, for that remarkable presentation. We appreciate all the time and wisdom that you gave us. I hope we can work with you soon again. God bless and stay safe.
All right. Thank you so much, Orlando, for that wonderful message. Now, to finally end our event, may we call on Miss Anna Gabata to formally end with a closing prayer.
Let us put ourselves in the holy presence of God. Dear God, we have successfully finished the event with your guidance and enlightenment. Thank you for being in our midst and giving direction for what we should accomplish. Thank you for motivating those present in this event to fully cooperate with the agenda. Bless the participants so they could imbibe the significance of this meeting. In our own little way, we will do our best to spread your love, peace, and generosity to everyone around us. All these we ask in your holy name. Amen. I will continue, O my God, to do all my actions for the love of you. Saint John Baptist de La Salle, pray for us. Live Jesus in our hearts forever.
Forever. All right. So thank you so much, Anna, for that. And thank you to everyone for joining us today. Please stay tuned for DLSU PolSci's Facebook page by giving it a like and follow for other exciting events that you may want to join in. We'll also be posting this webinar in YouTube just so that we can always look back at it and go back to the questions that were asked and answered. So once again, thank you to all of you who took part in DLSU PolSci's main course for this school year. We shall see each other once again in other events that the committees have for us. Again, I am Bavik Reville, your host for today. Thank you so much and have a great day ahead. Don't forget to fill out the goals if you haven't yet. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for coming.
Wow, natapos na yung Orlando.
Chano,
Wow.
natapos din tayo after 1 month.
Congrats!
Stop now
Bakit?
sa record, wait. Grabe.